All right, welcome back, Feisties. This is Kelly. I am back this week. Thanks to everyone for holding down the fort last week. This week, Katie had a childcare emergency, but Joanne is back with us, and we have Tamara Jewett joining us to talk all things triathlon. Tamara, I feel like you and I are up in the messaging all the time, just because you moved close to me. I actually don't see you, but I feel like you're a neighbor now.
It's true. I do feel like I message you about Bay Area things, but we've only seen each other in person here once at the T100 race.
Yeah. How do you like so you moved to California last year, and I'm very how do you like it so far?
Yeah, it's great for training. I really like the groups that I'm training with. So we're really close to Stanford, and Stanford Masters Swim is like quite amazing. I'm amazed at like how many practices they have available, and
Mm,
they're a really good group of swimmers. Their main coach Tim is awesome, so that's great. And then I've been running a bit with Peninsula Distance Club, and they train sort of both in San Francisco and around Stanford area. And they have some really really strong women
yeah.
doing most like marathon, but also like one of them just ran sub 16-minute 5K on the track, so like speedy group, and that's been really good for me. And then cycling, I'm like starting to get to know cyclists, and obviously just like the variety of terrain here is really really nice for training, especially with 70.3 worlds in Nice this year.
Oh, yeah.
So that's been great. I think it's been I had lived in Toronto for my entire life, and so it's been a big change to move somewhere else, and that's been hard, but yeah, easing into it. I've been scuba diving in Monterey, which has been really fun and like something different from triathlon that I also can't do when I'm back in Toronto as easily.
Yeah, I feel like what people don't know is that the number one thing Tamara messages me about is sharks.
We do, especially around Kona last year. We had quite extensive shark focused conversations.
Would you say
Yes.
that's the biggest difference between Toronto and California, the sharks?
Yeah.
It is a big difference. I don't know about biggest, but I have never heard of a shark in Lake Ontario, and I don't mind that for my open water swimming. For my scuba diving, it's different. When I'm open water swimming, I would prefer not to encounter a shark. I feel like my mindset completely changes when I'm scuba diving, and then I'm just desperate to see a shark. So they're very different activities.
You have gone, like, fully into the, like, ocean shark facts, though, and that's what you're always sending me, like, random and even your kit this year is, like, ocean inspired, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have a shark on it, but it is kelp forest, inspired, and I'm actually selling until April 13. I have, like, a custom store with Zoot selling sort of swim, bike, and run gear with the design that's on my kit, and it's, kelp forest theme, and it has a little sea star on it that is a sunflower sea star, and, the sort of my commission from those sales, I'm gonna donate to Sunflower Star Lab, in Moss Landing here. I could spend quite a long time going on this, but just really short. But there's a sunflower sea stars are really important to protecting the well-being of kelp forests in California. California has lost over 90% of its kelp forest since 2015. And part of it was a wasting disease that has killed off locally this sunflower sea star. Sunflower sea stars are really important for eating purple sea urchins, which, when they're not being eaten, get out of control and eat all the kelp, and then aren't even good for like sea urchin fishing because they also themselves become malnourished. So um, yeah, I've really enjoyed through scuba diving, and just like I've really enjoyed the local initiatives focused on trying to deal with this sort of ecological disaster, but that there's a lot of hope for protecting and bringing back the kelp, and that's been a really yeah, something I've really enjoyed being here, and I'm celebrating it this year with my race kit.
That's awesome. Whenever you talk about, like, the ocean and kind of all this conservation stuff, I always think about the bay, which everyone will see in Alcatraz in, like, a month or so,
Mm.
used to be so dirty that there were, like, no like, we lost all these fish, all this just and you never saw sharks. So everybody was like, "Oh, sharks don't come in." And now that it's gotten cleaner, you can see that sharks come in to the bay.
Not sure
And you're
that's a
like,
good
"Oh."
thing. The cleaning and the conservation is excellent, and I'm sure the rest of the marine life has also become better, but, sharks, but can
Mm.
I just ask about in terms of your kit, Tamara, where do you come up with the inspiration for the colors and how you're going to design it? And obviously giving back to the ecological and conservation aspect is important to you. But where does the inspiration for the colors and choosing the kit and all that kind of stuff come
Mm. That's very much collaboration with Zoot and Jen, one of their designers. So it's always a fun process at the start of the year with them, where I'll kind of create like a vision board basically, and then she'll translate it into a couple design options, and we'll go back and forth. So I think that's always a really fun part of the season. And this year I felt like it was a little bit wacky. I was like, here's my inspiration board full of kelp forest imagery. Like, let's do something with this. But I thought she came up with some really good ideas,
To be fair to Zoot,
and made
they're
it look
not shy
good.
of a few colors. We've seen them as partners with
Yeah.
Ironman for the past couple of years, and indeed from years past, and they were never shy of pushing the boat out on putting something out that's kind of trendy, or maybe a keepsake, or definitely something very, very colorful. So yeah, hopefully it brings you lots of luck for this year.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like it's a good fit for me with Zoot with those colors. I talk to Haley Chur about this sometimes because she's also very colorful in her uh, race kits when she's racing. But I feel like there are two schools of thought with the triathlon kits. It's like either very like sleek, muted colors, stylish looking, or like I'm just going to go all out, really colorful. And I kind of feel like if I'm going to do a full Ironman, I might as well just have something that's fun and
Yeah.
colorful.
If
And
you're going to run as
um,
fast as you run, you got to be running in fast kit, like absolutely.
Yeah, and it's great. It's
What's
easy
the
to
whole
spot
yeah.
me on course, which is also just very
That's what I was gonna say,
practical.
right? My, parents, whenever they're at triathlons, they're always like, "How are we gonna see you?" And I'm like, "Mom, first off, triathlons are not that big. You will see me." They're thinking like marathons,
Well,
like,
my
"No,
my mum has
it'll
a
be
strict
fine."
rule, so she's a very big supporter of our tri club in Galway, Galway Tri Club. But if you're not wearing Galway Tri Club kit on race day, it doesn't matter if
Mm,
she sees you, she won't call you out. Like she will not call your name unless if you're Galway, you need to be wearing Galway Tri Club kit. Now it probably comes down to the fact that she doesn't recognize everybody. So at least if you're in the
right.
Tri Club kit, she can cheer on. Come on, Galway! But yeah, the kit is so important, so important.
Oh,
Yep.
man. Now I'm thinking the other reason, though, that I messaged Tamara and was like, "You should come on the show this week," is because, okay, last week I was out. I was on vacation, taking the kid to see the grandparents in Kentucky. I was, like, not paying attention to triathlon stuff. I feel like I came back and I was like, "What what is happening?" And you guys did a good job, Joanne, last week covering the whole I don't even know what we were calling it. Like, is it too easy to be a pro controversy bullshit for lack of a but then Tamara was asking about this too, because you guys both like you're not American, so you don't follow like US qualification, right?
Mm. So, I am
Okay.
shaking my
So
head
how are
for
we do
those
we
that can't
h-
see me. I'm shaking
you're like,
my head.
no. So first off, I feel like do I know you guys settled this last week. Do we feel like it's too easy to be a pro triathlete?
Well, I don't think we settled that conversation last week. I think what we
Oh.
discussed was that there were different rules from different federations.
No, it's settled, Joanne.
It's
It's
not
done.
settled. I don't think it's fair to say it's too easy to become a pro triathlete because it differs from
No.
country to country. So I'm not 100% sure what's happened with the USAT and the rules that they've changed to make it more or less difficult for a pro to become a pro. But certainly what Natasha was saying was that it's different in every single country. So it's like comparing apples and oranges in terms of getting a pro card between Ireland and the UK versus maybe Canada and the USA.
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think, Tamara?
I think a few different thoughts. So yeah, it is. I don't know really that much about USAT's former policies, so I had to ask some people that I know, sort of, how does this compare to what you've had before? And I was getting kind of like mixed feelings a little bit about whether it's harder or not, or like it seems like it actually has gone through quite a different few phases of how you qualify. I feel like from where I am situated in the sport, where I haven't had to think about qualifying as a pro for quite a while, it's not like I'm not in a great position to like comment
Mhm.
on that part of being a pro. I feel like my concern, and also in responding to that sort of slow twitch article that was part of this whole debate, is that we're still seeing a lot of women's pro fields that are not very big, and so it just feels to me like um, not very this concept that some people have that it's too easy to become a pro in long course triathlon. I particularly for the women's field don't feel is a really pressing debate. I don't feel so concerned about whether it's, I just want more women to be trying pro
Yes,
racing and
sure.
seeing how that goes rather than worrying about whether people quote unquote deserve to be there. And it's not like you become a pro and then suddenly you're making tons of money or there, I don't feel like a pressing need to gatekeep that. And I do feel a real concern in conversations that I have with women who really are, I feel, from looking at their age group racing, good candidates to try pro racing and see how that goes and want to try pro racing, but are really caught up on whether they feel that they deserve to be a pro or not. And I wish they wouldn't. I just wish they wouldn't worry so much about whether they deserve to be. And I think whatever the qualifying criteria are in different places, like if they meet them, then they have a right to be a pro and they should feel
Mhm.
confident trying pro racing. And I want them there trying pro racing. Um, so that's an aspect. And I've had some people tell me that they don't think that the pro qualification should be different by different country, but that's something I haven't
Right.
thought about enough to know what my like real stance on that. It certainly is true in other sports that that type of qualification can be different by country. And an example I was bringing up with someone was for a while, Canada had a really frustrating standard for qualifying for the women's Olympic marathon that was
Yeah.
actually a harder standard than our national record in the women's marathon, even though the national record holder would have made the IOC's basic standard. So it's not unique to long course triathlon to have this situation of different countries having different rules for qualification like that.
So Kelly, you
For
didn't
sure.
get to row in on the conversation last week. So what are your thoughts?
Oh, I don't wanna I think we came back from Kentucky. I told my husband, like, "Oh my god, you won't believe what triathlon's worked up about." And I told him, and then he was like, "The fuck? Like, how is this a thing again? This was a thing 15 years ago." And I was like, "I don't know, man. I don't know." So
I,
but the reason I was bringing it back up was because the update since you guys talked about it last week was that USA Triathlon has updated their qualification criteria. I don't think it was in response to this. I think it's been in the works for a while. Um, they kind of update it every year, but also I think it's been in the works for a while because two things I think happened. One was that Katie's mentioned it, like you didn't need an elite license anymore to enter continental cups. And so that was an issue on the draft legal side. And on the non-drafting side, the Ironman Pro Series being first come, first serve really highlighted that like there were a lot of American men who had taken pro license, because the second issue was that during the pandemic, they added this criteria that's kind of like a PTO style points. Like if you earned an X number of points, you could get a pro license. And that I think was objectively easier just in the fact that more people hit that standard. And so that's why there was this like, where did all these people come from? That's why it felt pressing now. That's why I think it became an issue now. So anyway, the reason I did bring this up was not because I wanted to rehash. I think Tamara said it really well. Like I don't feel like this is a pressing issue. I don't feel I need to gatekeep, but because I did want to update people that USAT had kind of updated their criteria to qualify for your elite license. Because USAT is the biggest governing body, it does license the most pros. This is going to have a big impact on the pro field. They did make it harder. Some of the things that people are like concerned, like some of they didn't change as much as I think some people think they did. A lot of those rules were kind of in place before, but they did make it harder to get a license. I was doing the math. Basically, if you wanted to qualify coming out of Oceanside, you needed as a woman to do a 430. There was not a single age grouper who did. So let's put it that way, right? Like it is a percent off the winner.
Mm-hmm. So is that
So
on the
Taylor
so
screwed
that's
that
the
up.
new rule?
Yes. So no age group woman qualified out of Oceanside, per my understanding of the rule.
And so does that mean that it had to be a percentage of within a percentage of time of Taylor's time on the day?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Which obviously Taylor screwed that
I
up
was
for
just
everybody. So.
I mean, that's a race to
yeah.
qualify at if you've got, some of the best athletes in the world championships, world champion athletes racing at a race. It's going to be difficult races. So how do you circumnavigate that?
So
Oh,
obviously there are easier
okay.
races that one could do. Yeah. So it is a percent off the winner at either like a really big race, which is defined as like a world championship, a national championship, one of these like pro series races, or a smaller percent off the winner at a like a race that has a $20,000 prize purse, or like any of USAT's national age group championships if you win them. So they have made it harder. I think one of the questions that Tamara asked me and that a number of people have asked is, did the making it harder make it harder for women? than for men.
And can I just, the context for that, like so in general, that hadn't, again, like this hasn't been something that has been deeply on my radar. Like, what is U.S. triathlon's like criteria for
Yeah.
becoming pro? But something
You don't sit around and think about it? That's weird.
um, something that just gave me pause a little bit, that I think like whether that makes it, I think, a legitimate question to like look into whether it does actually or not disadvantage women, is I kind of, to my surprise, ended up around that Slow Twitch article having some conversations with people where it became clear in the conversation that they, even though, okay, Oceanside, I think 60 male pros finished the race and 26 female pros finished the race. So there are like more than 2 times as many male pros finishing the race as female pros. Um, Despite those numbers looking so different, the person that I was speaking to was thinking about it as, actually there are too many female pros in long course triathlon right now, because, and I don't know where they were getting their numbers, because I feel like particularly for 70.3s, you would have to like really look at this more carefully. I mean, at Ironman, or sorry, at the 70.3 run in conjunction with Ironman New Zealand, I know it was a record, but they had 49% women participation in their 70.3. So anyway, he was saying there is a bigger percentage of female pros than the percentage of women participating in long course triathlon. Therefore, there are too many female pros. That would, to me, was a very strange way to look at women's pro sport. And it's this crazy, like this kind of proportionality concept that I keep running into in long course triathlon, that was completely new to me, but is not new to people in the sport as of last year. So I just thought that was like a really alarming way to
Weird.
think
Yeah.
about it, or like that is something that I don't think is the right approach to the women's pro field at all. And so, having heard that, I did feel like, oh, I can understand why people are scrutinizing these policies a little bit. That seems like a concerning way to think about it. We want to make sure that it's not getting baked into official policies around qualification.
Sorry, can I be really stupid now and ask the question? Was that person, again, I've been traveling for 2 days to get to the race weekend, okay? So I'm a little bit tired and it's nearly 10 o'clock at night here in Croatia. Is that person basically saying that the base of age group women is too low, so we now have too many pro women, because we should have, if we had more women age groupers racing, you could have the number of pros that we have, but because the base is so low, that the triangle is
It,
not right?
Yeah, it was completely
Yeah.
tying like the percentage of women pros in the sport to like, or like in the numbers to like how many women are, which again, like I come from track and field. And if someone said to me, oh, like a smaller percentage of women globally do track than men, so we should actually, instead of having 8 women in the Olympic 400-meter final, we should have 6 women. And actually, we're going to have to cram them onto the track, but we should put 10 men in that final. For the men,
That
because
would be weird.
there's a bigger percentage. Like it's not. I think it's a strange way to think about it, and it's weird. Like it's so similar to how people are talking about women's age group Kona, and I had never even encountered this as a concept until last year when I started getting involved with that. I think there are even more problems applying it to the pro field than to the age group field, even though I have my views on how age group Kona also works around that principle. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting yeah, I mean, I think it's stupid, but yeah, it's like, to your point, it's concerning if we bake that philosophy into our qualification standard. So
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I like just so many things. I also, yeah,
We should be
like
Joanne's still like hung up on like, wait.
yeah, but it is weird. If you're used to just about any other sport, it's a completely, like, I don't even know how, like again, for track, like maybe people would have debates behind the scenes on whether they feel that it's harder or easier or whatever to get into the men's or the women's final, but the men's and the women's final are separate finals, and it shouldn't like, for the women pursuing the sport professionally, why should it matter how many women are participating in the
Run in
sport
the
at
world.
an
Yeah.
amateur level globally?
Joanne's thinking.
you could nearly do a meme with what's going on in my brain right now. Can I ask, like, I'm going to be an investigator now. Can I ask, was this male person, were they a triathlete?
Yeah, like I think amateur. They were certainly very involved in like journalism in the sport, and
Right.
like a big part of the community and in
Okay.
their sphere of it.
Yes. Okay. I'm trying to think of a transition here. I got nothing. But what I was going to say was, in terms of affecting, I think like what you're getting at is like obviously all these different policies and these attitudes that then influence the policies and everything, like it trickles down, right? And then you end up with either more or less women or men, and that impacts like people watching it. And then, you know, like you had conversations with women who are like, well, I don't want to upgrade to be a lead or pro because I don't think, right? Like it impacts everything, like it trickles out. So there has been a question kind of with USAT updating their standards if it will impact women more. There is some argument that it does because like literally fewer women will qualify under these standards than men. That was true before. I don't know yet, really. I think we'll have to wait and see. There is, because I don't know how like technical we want to get here, but I was gonna say, because like the scoring way it works doesn't have a gender difference, but does reflect back like how far you are off the winner, like the way the scoring works. With the scores that come out of the women's race are lower because those gaps tend to be larger. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there are fewer women who achieve the score standard under USAT's rules, but anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's
We want more women to race pro. That is the conclusion.
yeah, I think it's tricky to say based on that whether that is like a yeah,
Yeah.
whether it's a bad thing or not. And I think I also was having a conversation where like on the other side of this with someone who was disappointed because of things like Taylor Nib making it extra hard to qualify at certain races, and I feel like to some extent that can just be part of sport. Like last year through
Mm-hmm.
quirks in my season, I ended up for the first time and only time ever, because I've qualified again this year, not qualifying for 70.3 worlds. And that I didn't think that was sort of unfair. It was like just the way the qualifications work. The qualifications were very clear. And similarly, though, like so some women qualified who I don't like I would beat almost every single time I race them, if not every single time I race them. But on the I similarly don't think that they didn't deserve to be there for some
Right.
reason. Like they qualified, they have a right to be there, they deserve to be there, and I didn't qualify. So I think like it. I don't think there's this. I'm skeptical. Like obviously, you want to design good policies, but it's sort of like if you don't qualify as pro at a certain race, but you feel you do deserve to be pro, then go out to another race and keep trying to get your pro license. And if you do have your pro license, don't get so caught up on whether you deserve to be there. I mean, like reflect a bit on whether you want to be there and whether, you know, you're whether this is good development for you or like but it's not the job of the individual person. Like once you have your pro license, if you were given your pro license, you deserve to be in the pro race and just go race and let other people be disgruntled if they want to. It's not your problem.
It is not your problem. That is accurate. Did I miss anything else last week, guys? You're like,
I can't remember, Kelly. It's been a hectic week.
It's been a hectic week. I feel like I've heard rumors, but Joanne said I have to
No,
stop spreading
we're not
rumors.
having any
So
manifestations on this podcast. Katie Zephyrus needs to be here. The whole gang have to be here for the manifestations. Do not make any statements. We did have to apologize last week, though, Kelly, because I think you did mention that Kat Matthews may not have been on the start list for Texas. However, Carrie did inform us that she was, in fact, heading to Texas.
yes.
So
I will say that Ironman Texas start list is wild. I had thought maybe a month or so ago that a number, like a bunch of different, I had thought it was going to be smaller. I thought a bunch of different people like Kat weren't racing it. And it turns out like Kat's racing it, Taylor's racing it, Solveig's racing it, Christian's racing it, Gustav's racing it. It's like crazy.
it's crazy. And I can't even say his name right now. Yele Heens is taking on almost a world championship race squad in his very first Ironman, his debut Ironman. It is going to be fiery.
You did it last year, right, Tamara?
Yeah. It was my first ever Ironman.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you have any tips for Yelly then, since it's going to be your first Ironman?
I don't know. I don't know where his training is and where
Well, we know he can run really
I can
fast,
do
just like you. So, you know, I don't think he's going to worry about his running speed. Maybe for the marathon, but probably not.
I think I was too conservative on the run. I was nervous about the distance, and I went out conservatively rather than pushing the pace, which for me personally is not the best way for me to run my best run split. So then I had a huge improvement at Lake Placid just because even though my run was fine at Texas, it was more conservative than it needed to be. But to me, it felt like a very intimidating distance still starting that for the
Sure.
first time. And I had never run a marathon or anything before. So running your first marathon at the end of already racing for hours felt a little scary. And I was more cautious than it turns out I needed to be.
And can I ask
Did Texas live up to the hype? Oh, what were you I was gonna say, does it live up to the hype? Because it's like every year we're like, craziest, biggest, best race.
Um, I went into it, I really like courses, and I went into it with so many people telling me that it was like a course that I would hate because the bike is really monotonous. So I think I went into it less, and again, because my attitude with my first one was a bit like, well, we'll see how this goes. And I was a little intimidated by the distance still. So I was just like, okay, hopefully it goes okay. And then anything else is bonus. And I was so prepared to hate the course based on everyone's feedback to me that I feel like actually I liked the course better than I expected because I expected not to like it. It is kind of a cool atmosphere. The bike has a lot going on as you're passing the age group race. So I guess as a pro, even if you're not seeing a lot of different scenery, you're certainly seeing a lot of stuff going on that can sort of keep your mind occupied if you need some boosts in there. And then the run course genuinely does, I think, have quite a nice atmosphere. I liked the little hippie hollow part of it. And yeah, I think it was solid. It didn't feel like a bigger Ironman than other Pro Series Ironmans I've been in. But the start,
Because now you did that, you did Placid last year, you did Kona for the first time, and then you just were in New Zealand, which we'll talk about in a second. So you've done 4 now.
yeah.
Okay.
what was your favorite?
Yeah.
Ooh. I really like both Lake Placid and New Zealand. I'm not sure I have a favorite between
Mm.
those. They're both just such beautiful places to race with great atmospheres, and I had solid days at each of them, which obviously impacts how you feel about it.
And Texas is next weekend, right, Joanne? Not this
Yeah,
weekend?
the
We have
18th, I think.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. All right, then we'll do a bigger preview next weekend, or next week on our show. We'll wait and see if I was right and who ends up racing. No, I'm kidding.
It is really interesting when I really felt that, I mean, for me, we stuck with this, but I felt like it was a choice between Ironman New Zealand or Ironman Texas to start the season, and I'm quite interested by how many pros
Mhm.
are planning to do both. Um, and
Yeah.
and obviously,
I think that's why I thought people weren't, to
yeah,
your point.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and Christian just particularly aggressive to do New Zealand, Geelong, Oceanside, and Texas. Um, so
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, we're going to take a quick break here from sponsors, and then we're going to talk more about Tamara. Feisty triathletes, if you're looking for new shows to listen to on the trainer or extra insight to help you race your best this year, then we have 2 new podcasts I want to make sure you know about. First up, we've relaunched the brand new Feisty Women's Performance Podcast, hosted by Dr. Erin Ayala, to provide women with science-backed answers to their health and performance questions based on research actually designed for women. Like, too often, sports science is based on men, and answers to even our most basic health and training questions come through a male lens. That's why this podcast aims to cut through the noise and get active women the insights they need, whether it's how much protein you actually should be eating or how to manage sleep disruptions. The Feisty Women's Performance Podcast is out now with new episodes every Monday. And then our second new show is actually a show many of you may listen to already, but that's coming and growing under the Feisty umbrella. Trail Society, the iconic trail running podcast hosted by 3 amazing women, Corinne Malcolm, Hillary Allen, and Keely Henninger, covers all the science, training questions, and racing news in trail running. We're welcoming them now into the Feisty family, starting with their first 2026 episode featuring the amazing Western States winner, Abby Hall. So if you're looking to hit the trails this year, and who isn't, check out their weekly shows every Tuesday. So press pause right now and go follow, bookmark, save those 2 shows, Feisty Women's Performance and Trail Society, for your long run listening. We'll include links in the show notes, and if you like what you hear, be sure to share with your training buddies. Let's live our best, active, feistiest lives together this year.
Let's face it, as much as most of us love being outdoors, sometimes the outdoors doesn't love us. Like when it's 10 degrees below or pouring rain, or sometimes you've got a workout on tap that's just hard to do outdoors. Well, great news. We have partnered with Wahoo to offer you a special deal on the Wahoo Kicker Run, a revolutionary rethink of the traditional treadmill that will convert even the most diehard treadmill haters. I know because I was one. The Kicker Run is engineered to bring outdoor running straight into your home. With a push of a button, you can set up this machine to match your pace automatically, so you can just run, and it automatically adjusts with you instead of the other way around. By far, my favorite feature. It also has terrain simulation, so the deck feels like I'm on hard-packed trails with just enough give but no bounce. There's even a lateral tilt feature which mimics real-world terrain, varying the side-to-side angle to keep your muscles ready for outdoor running. Finally, the Kicker Run has unmatched connectivity. It seamlessly connects to the Wahoo ecosystem and third-party apps, so you can simulate routes from Strava or Zwift. Whether you're a triathlete, a devoted runner, or someone who just loves to stay fit, the Kicker Run is there for you, and honestly, it's just a beautiful machine. We love it, we know you will too, so check this thing out. Click the link in the show notes and use the code Feisty2026, all caps Feisty2026, to get a free Headwind Smart Fan valued at $300 with the purchase of a Wahoo Kicker Run today. I will drop a link in the show notes to make it a snap.
Feisties, I know the supplement space can be confusing and overwhelming. That's why here at Feisty Try, we love partnering with Momentous because of their commitment to supporting the science and research behind women's health and performance. All of their supplements are science-backed and independently tested for ingredients and label accuracy. They also focus not on some magic bullet, but on the health foundational fundamentals, from their women's 3-pack to their Momentous Fiber Plus product, which is what we've been using lately here at Feisty. So most people think that fiber is just about staying regular, but fiber actually plays an important role in gut health. And the more we're learning about gut health, the more we're understanding it can impact everything: energy, mood, recovery, even performance. Momentous's Fiber Plus is a complete 3-in-1 formula with soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, and a prebiotic-resistant starch. So before you start stacking a whole bunch of fancy supplements, don't forget the basics, like gut health. And right now, Momentous is offering Feisty listeners up to 35% off your first order with the code FEISTYTRY. That's Feisty, Feisty, try, TRI, one word, at livemomentous.com. Check out all of their health products at livemomentous.com and use the code FEISTYTRY for 35% off. All right, Tamara, I feel like we should start with, you were just at New Zealand, Geelong. You did Wanaka too, right? Challenge Wanaka?
Yeah.
You won that one, right? Tell us about New Zealand. Do we all need to go take a trip there?
I love New Zealand. It's such a outdoorsy place. The scenery is beautiful. Both Wanaka and Taupo, where the Ironman was, are really enthusiastic communities around their triathlon races. In both cases, sort of in the week leading up to the race, there were like sort of kids triathlons going on as well. In Wanaka, kids actually got time off of school to participate in the triathlons, it was like a whole community week-long event. Um, I feel like when you're there, you can really see why New Zealand like punches so much above its weight in sports internationally. And yeah, I really loved that experience. Becca Clark, who trains in Wanaka, convinced she was trying to recruit people basically for the pro field at Challenge Wanaka. It was the 20th anniversary of that race, so I was doing some swimming with her at Kona, and she sort of was trying to convince me to come down, and I thought it was a good pairing with Ironman New Zealand and a good excuse to see the South Island, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, I think I ran into you guys swimming out Kona. I'm glad that yeah, she convinced you to go out there. Everyone's always been telling me Wanaka is awesome, so it's on the bucket list.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Not a fast course. The road surface and the run surface are not fast, and I think the run was 600 meters long, but it's beautiful. Like just mountains the whole time. You feel like you're in Middle Earth.
The one was 605 meters long, Joanne. She felt it.
No, that's based on Becca's watch. Becca was complaining at the end of the race that like she had a bit of a like rough end to the run, including an intense sprint finish with Gabby. And she was like, "What the heck? It was 600 meters long. I shouldn't have had to have that sprint finish."
And then you did Geelong and New Zealand. And are you taking a break now before the summer? Is that your plan?
Yeah, I'll start racing again in June with 70.3 Happy Valley. And sort of the
Mm.
next big A race is Ironman Lake Placid.
You're qualified for Kona as well, the one on the back of New Zealand now, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll do one more full Ironman before Kona?
Yeah. I've sort of
And
paired things with like a 70.3 and an Ironman. So the concept was sort of New Zealand, Geelong, Happy Valley, and Lake Placid. Although I'll also do Tremblant because I like to support that race. It's the week after Happy Valley, and then ideally, hopefully, if everything's feeling good and going well, 70.3 Worlds and Kona, sort of pairing those together conceptually.
Mm. Hmm. I was thinking about all these races that you just did. In all of them, you were like running people down, right? Like I was just looking at like the footage from, and it's always like, "Here comes Tamara," and she's like running people down. What is that like in the race? Like, is it nice to know that you can run people down the whole time, or is it kind of like, God damn it, I have to run all the way to the finish line?
It can feel different in different races, and even within the same race, there might be like a mix of some of those feelings. I think on balance, I prefer it to not being able to do that. Like it does make me feel like I never need to count myself out, or I can always do something in the race. It can feel like a lot of pressure sometimes too on that
Right.
run. I in Wanaka, I was sick. I had a cold, and my swim and bike were pretty disappointing. I had like a much bigger gap than I wanted to, and I wasn't feeling 100%. So I felt pretty grouchy actually at that one getting off the bike, and I had kind of uh reconciled myself to just kind of plodding my way through it, but I was able to build up momentum and eventually really turn things around and win it. So it can be even within the same race sometimes there's a little a little
Hmm,
bit of both.
interesting.
Wanaka was actually interesting, even though it was a small women's field, it was kind of an interesting matchup that way because Becca, who was second and who led the race until the last couple of kilometers, is like quite a different triathlete from me, where she's one of the strongest swimmers in the field and then can often hold that strongly on the bike. And then she's sort of trying to hang on the run. So it was like an interesting sort of head to head there between
Yeah.
us.
I was thinking when we talked to like Lauren Brandon about that, like what it's like to be out in front the whole time versus running people down. I don't know. Which would you prefer, Joanne?
Well, I actually was just about to ask Tamara whether she prefers being the chaser or the chased. You know, when you overtook Becca, did you feel like you had a target on your back, or did you think, okay, I'm on the home straight now, just keep focused and the finish line is in sight, even though it might be 600 meters further than planned?
I think the main thing is like being close to people. Like when you can see someone and you're chasing them, that's a big boost. And when you just get past them and you're like desperate to hang on to that, that's also a big boost. And I like the energy of both of those feelings. I think in the big scheme of things, I like that I can keep chasing people on the run, but I mean, I'm just as happy to move into first place and try to hang on that. Like some of my best races have been like that. I think 2023 when I won Oceanside, like it was pretty exhilarating to in my mind, like Chelsea was just like on my heels the whole rest of the race after I passed her, and it definitely made me run fast.
Right.
So how do you keep your mind in the moment of Chelsea's on my heels, I'm in the lead, this is mine to lose? How do you stay in that moment and stay focused on the finish line and not lose sight of it, or worry that the fact that Chelsea is such a great runner and a world champion and could run you down potentially?
I find the most effective thing is when I can get into the mindset of all I have to do here is try and just really let go of
Mm.
letting go even of what I want and also what other people are going to think watching it. Just sort of suspending that to deal with until after the race and really trying to live in the space of all I can ask of myself is to try and all that I have to do is to try. when I move away from that mindset, I do kind of start to run into trouble with that sort of like outcome oriented thinking that can get in the way in the middle of your racing. And I find it's the most positive and effective place to race when I'm just in that focus on the effort, and the possibility and trying to whether that works out or not.
So obviously you're one of the fastest runners in the pro circuit. But I was on Haley Cher's new podcast, right? That you said someone said you don't look like a runner, and I will say you have a different form than some of the other runners. Do you feel like you look like a runner? What did that do? Or do like, you know what I'm saying? Do you feel like you look like a runner and that is just stupid, or does it even matter? Like as you were saying, you have to put aside like what people think. I was thinking about
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of an exaggeration to say they said I didn't look like a runner. They were saying that compared to someone else, I didn't look like as fast of a runner. So it was surprising that I was a really fast runner. But I
Sure.
think I really generally think that I do look on the smaller side sometimes in triathlon still. So I don't, and that's often, so there are layers to this. So I don't often get the comment that people think that I don't look like a runner, because I think in general I do look a lot like people's stereotypical image of a runner. I have much more I'm like heavier and more muscular than I was for a lot of the time that I was just focused on running. And I think a lot of people still imagine a fast runner as being very thin, particularly for distance racing. Um, but during the time where I was thinner and was focused on running, I was injured all the time and I had some very
Right.
serious health problems. And my run times are, um, like even the group that I train with right now on the track, like I feel like based on what they are running in some of their track 5Ks, because I was injured so much and never able to string together years of training properly when I was running, I feel like actually probably even if I stepped into like a 5K track race, it's possible that I would PB right now, even though in general I don't have the same sharpness. So I think like I just think this concept, I mean the concept of what a runner quote unquote looks like as opposed to looking at how runners perform, for me it almost completely destroyed my athletic career in the ways that it seeps
Right.
into run culture. And I think it's really um problematic, and people don't always, if they haven't experienced that, aren't always thinking about it
Mm.
deeply. um so uh I think it's good for running. The more I think that running can get away from a concept of what a runner looks like, but it is a bit of common in all sports for people to have a concept of what they think different kind of athletes look like, or how looks relate to athletic performance. It doesn't always match up in the way that people assume.
I mean, you talked before about being injured for a long time running wise. Do you feel like I know that's why you moved over to triathlon, but do you feel healthier now? Do you think triathlon's any healthier, or is it just different?
I'm so much healthier. I think it's hard to I really am. Like the only injuries I've had really seriously in triathlon are bike crash injuries, like breaking a
Mm,
collarbone in a bike crash. I've had a few Achilles strains, but my body heals so much faster than it used to. They're little setbacks, as opposed to as a runner, I was running into repetitive strain injury after repetitive strain injury after repetitive strain injury that would take 3 months or more to heal from. um my psychology is a lot healthier. Like I really at one point had really like a true eating disorder, and even once I was physically healthy, it was, kind of like a quiet energy drain ruining my life in the background at
sure.
times, and that's just no longer part of me. um so I feel very like healed in triathlon. I think that's a mix of um ways that multi-sport can balance out sort of different attitudes, different movement patterns, but it's also partly like my journey and how like what I had learned by the time I came into triathlon, and a determination from me and my coaching staff to approach triathlon in a way that is healthy for me.
Are you enjoying the multi-sport aspect of it as well, Tamara? You mentioned earlier that you're swimming with one masters group, you're running with a different group, you're looking out for cyclists. So the community, the social aspect of it, does that help with the enjoyment of the sport as a professional triathlete?
Yeah, I think it keeps it very dynamic. That was something that I really noticed with track. I really had to have other big things that I was focused on in my life because I would get
Mm.
bored of just running, and that happens less in triathlon. I feel more competent at more things too, working on different athletic skills and kind of learning from different people who are more specialized in the sports that they're doing as I hop into different groups. So I do really like that dynamic aspect of it.
And is running your favorite sport?
Yeah.
Still.
Um, no, I think which the one that's my favorite just switches randomly all the time, to be honest. Like really in my training, I'll have a week where I'm like, oh, swim is excellent now. I just want to be in the pool. And then 2 days later, it could be like, oh, it's such a drag to have to go to the pool. I just want to bike. Or like it really kind of switches around like that.
Mm.
Um, I I'm I feel the most Well, actually, I was gonna say I feel the most confident still in running, but actually when I started training with Peninsula Distance Club, I hadn't been on a track for years, really, almost. Like I do almost until then, I had really done almost no training on the track for quite a few years, and I had such a weird feeling of like I've spent so many years and years and years of my life doing track with track groups, and I felt really self-conscious about whether I would like know what I was doing on the track and fit in with the group, which I do. It was fine, but I was so nervous for that first session back, like, with runners on the track, so
I feel like most of the time when people are worried about like not fitting in, like it's fine. They're fine. Nobody else notices. Yeah.
We're our own
yeah,
best
I know what
critic,
I'm
of
doing on
course.
a track. It was really okay, but it just yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. In my mind, it was really intimidating for a moment.
You were also doing obviously so much middle distance. Like when people think Tamara Jewett, they thought middle distance for forever. And you have now moved into Ironman and like longer course. And I know just from having talked to you some that like this is part of what's keeping you excited or interested, which is like wild because it's so boring. Yeah.
I know, it's such a strange activity. I mean, Ironman New Zealand, my takeaway is, like, that was amazing, I love it, what a wonderful trip, but I certainly, even in the race, had moments of, like, "This is just a really strange activity. Why have I decided to spend my day doing this? And why does this race have to be quite so long? Is it not enough to race for a couple hours instead of, like,
Yeah.
8
Yeah.
plus?" Yeah, it's nice.
So what is it then? Yeah. What is it that's making you like re-excited?
It's nice to have a different challenge or just to try to understand how that race comes together. I've done a lot of 70.3s at this point, and there's still places to improve or sort of like wanting to improve, but I feel like I understand that race pretty well, and the full distance is different training again. It's and um different courses, different schedule, some extra race logistics. It all makes it feel a little bit more new, and with a lot more to try to master again. So I found it I didn't know whether I would like it or not. I kind of wanted to try one at first just to be able to say that I'd done it and also to have a more informed opinion on the distance because obviously in a world now where a lot of people do fulls and um yeah, I think it is always a mix of, like, parts of it can be so boring, but it can feel like such an accomplishment as well once you have gotten yourself through it. Definitely in terms of the races, but also in terms of some of the training. So I'll flip-flop between feeling like, "Oh, a 6-hour ride today, that's like, why? Why am I doing this? Who wants to ride for 6 hours?" That's like 3 hours too long to be on a bike. But then I'll have other days where it's sort of clicking and I feel like, wow, I used to feel like 3 hours was a really long ride. And now look how strong I am through these 3 hours. It doesn't even feel like a long amount of time anymore. That's really satisfying. And so yeah, I feel like it's like the tension between
Mm.
those things is still more tipped on the side of feeling interested in and proud of the accomplishments than feeling the boredom part of it, even though they're both there for sure.
So if you had a favorite training session, what would it be?
Again, it
Yeah.
changes. It changes. Yeah.
She's like, "No,
No,
Tamara,
I
give us the
want to know what it
specifics."
is.
Okay.
I don't I like I mean, I do really like having some variety. So it was nice to come back from like New Zealand and have a couple weeks where we were doing a little bit less volume and more sharpening stuff, or even just throwing in the odd workout that is, at like quite an extreme. The main set in one of my swim workouts last week was just like 3 really fast 100s with
Mm,
tons of rest. And it's not the kind of thing that is really designed for Ironman training that I would do a lot, but I think it's a good stimulus to have. So sometimes I like doing that, but if that was all that my training was, I would really miss some of the longer sets that I get satisfaction from in a different way. So maybe I just
we did an all-out 100 at Masters once, and I had to like lay down in the car for a while before I drove home. Like, I was like, oh
I
man,
thought you were going to say you had to lay down on the pool deck.
no, it took me a while, and then I was like, oh shit, I need to sit here for a while.
yeah,
So
my
it can be really
my
hard.
problem has always been that like I'm more I just have like it's hard for me to push that really really top end
Mm.
speed. So I get frustrated if I do it too often where I'm like, oh, like we're doing 3 with 5 minutes rest, but it might as well be 5 with like less than a minute rest because my pace is not
Mhm.
different enough. But I think it's a really good exercise to throw a bit of that in and work on the critical speed a bit.
All right, because this was obviously our topic for the first half of the show. I know, like you were like a very very good runner. You got injured a lot. You started doing age group triathlon, but you were still working as a lawyer, right? And so eventually you decided I'm going to go pro, and then I'm going to go all in. I'm going to quit my lawyer job. Since we were talking a whole bunch about what makes people kind of want to do that, what made you decide to go all in, no more lawyering, and did it make a difference?
Yeah, I think so. It was really, really, really exhausting doing what I was doing with both the law and the pro. And it was like I was making it because I wanted to be performing at a really high level in each one. And I was making that work, but what was sustainable for sort of like 12 months at a time was starting to feel pretty like something was going to have to change in terms
Mhm.
of um doing like backing off on one when I looked at like, okay, if this is not 12 months, if this is like year after year after year, it was a pretty intense schedule and it was taking a toll on, on me and the people around me. And I felt that because in running, I had always been injured. I hadn't had an opportunity to just really, I had tried a couple of times and it had not worked because of injuries to really put everything into my running for a little bit. I had always been someone who was an extremely diligent student and like a student athlete, diligent student, diligent athlete, but always, always, always balancing both. And I just felt like I wanted a moment to be able to prioritize my sport and see how it went. And that wasn't going to just come around again later at that point because I was, getting into my 30s. So, um, I had a window where like financially it was doable to, at least for a short time to see how it went. And I decided to do that. Um, and I do think it definitely makes a difference in terms of my recovery and training intensity. So whether that's making a difference for one race at a time, I think certainly consistency of racing over years, that's a big difference. It's given me a lot more time to do things like try in bits and pieces to work on the aerodynamics of my bike, like do more. There are a lot of chores that just get neglected around sort of that support my racing but aren't even directly training that I'm able to do much more. Um, so yeah, I think and it's sort of kind of like my initial involvement in triathlon. It's taken on a bit of a life of its own at the moment where each 1 year plan suddenly gets another year added to it and then I'm doing it for longer than I expected to. Um,
Ooh, how long did you expect to do it?
Well, when I started triathlon, I was just going to do a few triathlons as an age grouper to slow down my return to running. And that turned into doing a year as a pro, trying to qualify for 70.3 Worlds. And then I qualified for 2020 in New Zealand. I was going to do that trip, have a great trip in New Zealand, quit triathlon forever, and go back to my law job full time. And then the pandemic happened and that got postponed for a year. So then for a while I was back to that just balancing balancing both things. And I think actually part of staying in triathlon was during the pandemic, work was all remote and my triathlon network was going out of its way to try to find safe ways to do things in person, and it really skewed my networking towards triathlon, and I just
Mm.
got more and more and more sucked into it. Um, and then yeah, and then I was gonna try a year as a f the year as a full-time pro wasn't as much as a set, like, for sure, this is a one-year plan, but it's certainly every year, I feel like it's sort of, "Okay, we'll make this work for a year and then see where we are," and so far, I keep extending it then after that, so we'll see.
So we'll see at the end of this year. Are you gonna go obviously, you have a one-year plan, we just said, so you haven't thought beyond the year, but is the plan eventually to go back to being a lawyer?
Yes,
Mm.
Sports
it is
lawyer,
right
maybe.
now.
And
Oh, it's
agent
I
for pro
don't
oh.
triathletes.
the trick is, as a sports lawyer, finding clients that can pay you without ending
Right.
up just doing contract negotiations for, like, the MLB or something
You could
like
be the
that.
female
I would
wrestler Jerry
love I
Maguire.
would
Yeah.
um Yeah, I think that's a little complicated more complicated than when I was back in Toronto because back in like, I'm right now licensed to practice on Ontario law, so there is more of a process depending on what Chris does with his career and how long I am in California. I think if I was in Toronto, it's, like, quite straightforward to go back into law overall. I mean, a learning curve getting back into it
Mhm.
and, after being out for years. If I stay in California longer, it might be good to get back into it, but I would look into having to write the California bar exam, and there would be quite a learning curve about American laws. So it's a
Mhm.
little bit more complicated out here for that route, but that is the long term plan, one way or another.
Just put on the long finger for a few more
Interesting.
years of pro tri racing.
Mm. Yeah,
I'm stuck.
yeah.
I'm stuck here in California doing pro triathlon. What can I do?
Terrible, terrible. I mean, when is Kelly going to ring you and bring you for coffee?
Yeah.
Practically neighbors.
What are your we actually we are practically neighbors, it's true. For your one-year plan though, Tamara, slash 1 year plus plan, what is like what is left on this what is left to do as a pro triathlete? What are your goals here?
This year in particular, I'd really like to have a better race at Kona. I was sick for my
Sure.
first race at Kona, and it was a pretty brutal in terms of the result and the experience. And I want another shot at that race where I'm hopefully able to perform more at my level and um, just like have a stronger result and a better at least a race experience where I'm able to be more in the race and not just hanging on for dear life to get myself through it the whole time. I think that's a big goal this year.
We ended up hanging out with your parents randomly during the race, and they were like, "Why won't she drop out? She should just like, she's so sick." And I was like, "I don't know." So
Well, I just felt like I don't know. I didn't know if I would ever be back. I just felt like all
Right.
everything that had gone into that day, I just felt like I wouldn't be able to get out of bed the next day if I hadn't gotten myself through it one way or the other. So I just had to get to that finish line. But yeah, my husband came out onto the bike course to try to pull me off, and I was so angry with him. I was like, "No, go away."
The question is though, did you make it to the finish party? As in the Sunday night party,
Um,
did you make it to the post race party?
I was hanging out around the finish line for a little bit after I raced, but I did have a pretty, like, not feeling
Oh,
good,
sorry, I'm
tearful,
sorry.
I'm
I
in
meant
some
on Sunday. I
space
meant the
night
night of
that
the awards. Did you make it?
the after
Oh,
party.
Sorry,
Did
no,
you go to the
no.
I was
after
getting my
No,
words
party?
no.
mixed up.
I think it took me, like, a good month to mentally recover from that race. I needed some space. I had to go swimming with the manta rays and just, like,
Okay,
find my peace
that's okay.
again.
Now, before we finish up, can I be really selfish? I'm gonna be really selfish because I
Okay.
am doing a 20K trail race here in Croatia. It's my very first UTMB
Oh, really?
race on Sunday, and I haven't run.
Hmm.
Well, I'm going to say I shuffled the Ironman 70.3 half marathon in Mallorca in 2024, but I haven't run a standalone half marathon in about 10 years, and I definitely haven't run 20K in 2 years. What is the best bit of advice from one of the fastest female runners in the pro circuit? What would you tell me to do between now and Sunday to prepare for my run, Tamara? I'm scared.
Now it's
Now and
Sunday.
Sunday. I think well, I don't know anything about trail running, I feel like it's its own beast. I
How did you move to California and you don't know anything about trail running yet? We have to. We'll
Because
take
I'm
you out.
spending
That's
all
fine.
of my time training for Ironmans. When do I have time to train
You're
to
on your break
run?
now, though, aren't you? So you'll be able to go. You'll be able to go running with Kelly. The trail race.
Well,
that's
break
with Kelly.
break from racing, not from training.
Training.
Yeah, I think just be really careful not to hurt yourself. Maybe do little bit. Like I feel like at this point there's not that much you can do, but maybe just do a few short runs so that it's not a complete shock to your system. But even if it's like 15 to 20 minutes of just like getting the movement, making sure the race isn't like the first time that your calves are doing that specific movement again, and then just being honest with your body that you're not going to hurt yourself. And
I'm giving myself
I
plenty of
think,
permission to walk.
yeah,
That's what I was gonna say, Joanne. Trail running is really just power walking
Okay.
on the hills.
yeah,
So just
Yeah.
work the
commit to
technical
walking.
parts of it.
Okay. It'll be fun.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tamara, and hopefully we do run into each other sooner than later. And thank you, all you Feisties, for listening. If you like the episode, share with a friend, rate us on whichever platform you are listening on, and we will be back next week with Katie and the rest of the crew.
Hey, Feisties. Feisty CEO Sarah Gross here, interrupting your podcast to tell you about the new event we launched in 2026. It is the biggest event we've ever had at Feisty, and we are excited to bring everyone together in one place. If you've been around for a while, you know we've done a lot of events over the years. Conferences, retreats, live podcasts, group runs and rides. And for a while now, we've been dreaming of something bigger. Of one event that brings all our communities together. A weekend free from judgment, full of science-backed health information and fun activities. And most importantly, completely free from the chaos of the outside world. That weekend is here. Feisty Fest is coming to the east coast of the US, September 18th to 20th, 2026 in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. It's 3 days of doing the sports you love, experts who give you straight answers about your body, and a community of women who move because it's who we are. No weight talk, no influencer culture, no one needing anything from you. Just 3 days of being completely, unapologetically yourself. This is our first ever East Coast event, and I cannot wait to meet you all there. And the first 100 women to register get a free Feisty Fest crew neck sweatshirt with a custom design by artist Lisa Condon. It's really nice, so y'all should jump on that. They're going fast. Head over to feisty.co/events to grab your spot. The link will be in the show notes. Come get a little feisty. I'll see you in September.